Are you curious about the logistics of fat vampires?
Or are elves from space? All of them?
Or what it took for me to create my comic book.
Let us tell you.
Welcome to the Nerd News Podcast, starring Tyson Cox and Tyler Waltz.
Welcome to Nerd News, everybody. I am your host, Tyson Cox, and with me, as always, is
Tyler Waltz.
And this week, we're joined by a very special guest, comic book creator, stand-up comedian, all-around great dude, Brian Pitre.
Hey.
Yeah, our first guest and first returning guest.
That's how I have to
Back,
keep it.
baby.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're very glad to have you back. There's been a lot of things going on since you were last year and some projects that you're excited to talk about.
It's been wild.
Yeah, and projects that all three of us are a part of. But yeah, I know we were going to get started on a hilarious little side comment that you made, because we all work together.
Yeah.
A side comment that you made at work that was absolutely hysterical that we talked about forever.
For at least 3 days.
For at least 3 days.
I wasn't involved in this, so I'm very... what's going on?
That was ideal, honestly. The logistics of fat vampires.
Okay, let's hear your theory, Brian. You're the guest. You're the expert.
So before I go into the research,
We sent this to Harvard?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, okay.
Yale.
There's few responses.
We did send it, though. We sent it.
I've discussed it with dietitians. I've discussed it with priest. It's interesting. It's interesting because the first thought is, do they need to consume more than the average vampire?
Right.
Being that their metabolic rate is now set at a certain level,
Yep.
is it now that they have to drink more blood to maintain their calorie intake, or do they go on a diet? And can you lose weight and get more fit if you're a vampire? The undead are not dead on physical fitness. I mean, they can absolutely improve.
You think so?
I mean, they got hyper speed, hyper strength.
Yeah.
But
Eventually, they're going to burn those calories. But the question is, do they have to maintain? Does it get stuck like their age?
I thought the whole thing about vampires is however you get turned is how you stay.
yeah.
So
interview with the vampire rules, right?
That's what we're trying to figure out here.
You don't
Is-
age, you don't die.
Right.
So all the physical output you do doesn't change your metabolic rate or your ability to lose or gain weight. So you gotta maintain that body size.
Gotcha.
You gotta just keep eating more people.
Yeah, because you're not going to get fit.
No.
So you also think that you're just stuck that way.
Yeah.
You don't think if like a fat guy gets turned into a vampire, they could be like, okay, I have an eternity to get in better shape. Let's make this happen.
I don't see it happening.
Yeah, knowing you, Tyler, you'd be like, I'll get to it.
I'm
next
trying.
century.
I'm doing my best.
I mean, you're technically a vampire on keto.
yeah, kind of, yeah. It's
Doing
like,
keto is technically being a vampire.
and it's working. It's not for nothing. It's like-
You're getting paler.
But yeah, if it was for nothing though, I would quit.
The ultimate part about it is that I don't think psychologically it would matter to a vampire.
It's true.
I don't think they would care.
Yeah, but the fit vampires are having a way better time than the ones that are like, I can't really just go to a nightclub like Edward over here and just sling dick all day.
I mean, you could.
It's Sling Fang. It's Sling Fang.
Sling Fang. Yeah.
Sinking into anything.
But
you
but
can
here's the
find.
thing, like they just get older, you get more powerful, and you got the very, very uncool hypnotic suggestion.
You do. I also think though that there's probably some sort of like, what if it was a vampire who's been self-conscious about it his whole life? Right? And then he becomes a vampire. Now he's stuck there.
Yeah.
That's like becoming a vampire at 80. You're an 80-year-old man and somebody turns you into a vampire.
You're like, that vampire is a dick.
Yeah.
Just a curmudgeon of a vampire.
Well, isn't that the kind of the whole plot of the new Nicolas Cage vampire movie? Is that he was a familiar to a vampire until
Oh, that's
he got
Renfield.
Yeah,
No,
Renfield.
That's Dracula. The story of Dracula.
No, for sure. But in Dracula, he never turns him.
Renfield,
right?
no.
Yeah.
That's the point of this one, is to show what happens after you've been a familiar for years.
Yeah, but I mean, Nicolas Cage isn't young. Like, I wouldn't want to be Nicolas Cage's age forever. Like,
I mean,
He's like 50. It's
Yeah.
not that. It's not that. You're going to be 50 one day, hopefully, Tyler.
not if I have anything to say about it.
not if keto has anything to say.
But yeah, like, I don't know. It's like the what's it called? Why can't I think of the name of the show right now?
What We Do in the Shadows?
Yeah, What We Do in the Shadows. It's like-
Laszlo's a chubby vampire.
yeah, Laszlo is a chubby vampire.
Yeah.
But there's definitely, if I had the offer, like, hey, do you want to become a vampire? I'd be like, give me a year. Because I need to figure something out.
I gotta fix this.
I got to fix
Can't
it.
be stuck this way.
I mean, I've read, there's a couple of books, they're written, they're like comedy vampire books, but like one of them is like, I got turned to a vampire and their scars went away and their ankle quit hurting.
Yeah,
So
that
it's
happens.
Like,
yeah.
there's
Physical
a lot of
ailments fix. You get fixed but is fat a physical ailment?
It depends.
I think technically, yeah. We might have a couple movements mad at us, but I think so. Yeah.
Hey, it's the most beautiful physical.
It's the most beautiful physical ailment.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I mean, I think there's probably
What happens with breast implants?
Or here's
they
the
stay
thing.
there.
They stay.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've seen DeviantArt.
Well, here's the thing. If you are bigger, there are health problems that come with it. So are you just bigger with none of the health problems?
Yeah, you don't have any. You
Right?
don't have
Like your
plaque
heart disease
buildup
goes
and-
away.
Yeah, all
and,
that
like,
goes
all the-
away.
That might not be bad.
You know what I'm
actually.
saying?
I might be fine. Go ahead and turn me.
So what was the initial question? Is there fat vampires or what's the logistics of
What's
it?
the logistics?
Like,
how do
can
they
you lose weight?
maintain?
There is.
Yeah.
I've seen fiction, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, where there are like characters like the big boy.
Yeah, but are they fat vampires because they drank too much blood and like they don't work out and stuff, or did they get turned fat and they
I
physically?
think it's when you
can't
get
go away?
turned.
Yeah.
It can't go away.
I can't let go of the image of a vampire in his boxers on the couch with like a bag of blood chips and just
Right. Yeah. Or it would be funny for a fat vampire to do like a Rocky montage of working out and then at the end of it being the same. Damn it. It's like
I had this bit that never worked. I wanted to turn it into a sketch, but it was like I was going to be on stage and I was going to just be getting heckled from the audience.
okay.
And it's just like, all right. And then it heckles again. You're like, okay. And then it like heckles me a third time. You see that it's a really fat vampire.
Okay.
And so I just start firing back like, all right, hey man, the only light you're not afraid of is a refrigerator light. Like, you're afraid of two crosses, Jesus's and fit.
that's good.
And then the crowd was going to be mad at me for being mean to him.
That sounds like exactly what would happen.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
I don't know. I think that do they get more hungry more often because they have to maintain a calorie intake to stay at
sure.
that size?
If you're a fat vampire out there, if you could please let us know at the Nerd News Channel at
Please,
gmail.com
anyone.
or leave a comment.
Yeah, let us know what your thoughts are out there. What are you guys thinking there in TV land? What do you like? Can you get shredded as a vampire?
Right. I wasn't expecting all of us to be unanimous and like, no, you're just fat
You're
forever.
just stuck
Well,
forever.
I've seen fiction where there's like big boy vampires.
Yeah.
You know? They don't care.
Yeah. I don't think you would if you live in eternity.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like, I might have had heart disease, but I'm still going to outlive you, girl. Like, I was like,
if you're a vampire, there's nothing wrong with getting a little snacky.
nah.
Yeah. And like it's not gonna affect your stand. Like you're not gonna be jogging like chasing after your victim and be like, stitch, got a stitch.
Yeah. No, you're not going to run out of breath. Sitting down.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, man. No, that's.
It would also be more intimidating to just be like walking outside and you're seeing a big boy like
Yeah. Quick.
45 miles an hour.
terrifying.
And like having Dr. Phil chase you on just full speed.
Oh man, somebody's experienced that.
Just the force of like Kingpin as a vampire.
God.
Terrifying.
See, that's well, is that different? Because there's a lot of different versions of Kingpin. Like
Well,
sometimes Kingpin, like in the Spider-Verse,
Yeah.
is just he's a wall of
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
But sometimes he's just a ripped, tall, big dude.
So they say like he's like 400 pounds, but they draw him like a big dude,
Yeah.
like a fat guy, and they're like 99% muscle. First of all, that's super unhealthy.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
that's
not
not
good.
good.
But yeah, so fat vampires.
I think that there's probably some sort of ability for them to change as they get more powerful.
When they turn to mist, do they turn into like more bats?
Well, yeah. It's like twice as many bats.
Yeah.
When they turn into a wolf, is it kind of like, ooh, that wolf needs to get put on a diet?
Yeah.
It's got too much in the waist.
Yeah, that owner is bad.
Bad.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I've been overfeeding that wolf.
I didn't even think about how many bats you'd turn into.
Yeah.
'Cause that would make you more powerful if you wanted to swarm somebody with
A
bats.
lot of bats.
Yeah.
So if anything, all these skinny, sexy vampires are doing it wrong.
Yeah. But also at what level, like, so we're just casually making jokes about just being a bigger vampire, right? But what if somebody from like my 600-pound life gets turned? I feel like that's a whole different monster to deal with.
That's like the
you
Godskin
imagine?
duo.
That's like an entire cave's worth of bats.
Like, when like a vampire poofs into a scene,
Yeah.
like just randomly, it, like poofs into a scene, but he's stuck,
Right.
'Cause he didn't,
Oh no.
he didn't factor in the width of that room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure it also depends on the vampire. I'm sure there's somebody that wrote like a very inspirational fan art story of a vampire that finally got their shit together.
yeah,
Hang on,
that'd be
that's
great.
I googled average bat weight and I was like, dang, 3-pound bat up 46 inches. Oh, that's a baseball bat. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, they got 3-pound bats, big old fruit bats.
Yeah. Yeah. and
Or
there's-
that's a good question. You don't
scary.
make more bats. Do you just make bigger bats?
Ooh, that seems scary.
That's even scarier.
That's
Massive
a lot
bats
scarier, yeah.
flying at you.
Just be like,
I don't know.
looks like a pterodactyl coming
12
in.
giant bats versus 100 little bats.
All right. So it looks like bats weigh about 2 ounces.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
So now when we revisit the research,
That's eight bats a pound.
8 bats a pound.
Yeah. And say you say weigh 600 and that's
Yep.
would be times 8. You would turn into 4,800 bats, roughly.
a lot of bats, man.
So many
That's
bats.
so many bats.
Oh no.
There is a book series called Fat Vampire,
Okay.
and I've now got it on my reading.
I was like, and
list.
you are buying it, right?
Yeah, it's got a 3.7 and
That's
a
not bad.
4.5 on Audible.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's higher rated than the Bigfoot love novel.
it's got better ratings than The Vow, I think.
I mean, it's no Notebook, but it'll get you through a lonely evening.
But he's got like 8 books, and it's this guy named Johnny B. Tarrant, and I'm very interested to see how he approaches the concept of a fat vampire, because
Yeah.
it's just this big. He looks like a Buddha, and he's just like
Okay.
sitting there, like completely in love with eating whoever he's eating, and he's just like sloppily eating
I
that
don't like
person
that.
like wings.
I'm in. Like,
That upsets
here's
me.
the crazy thing: we're making jokes and stuff like that, but there's every movie just has the stereotypical, just like ripped or
Yeah.
absolutely ancient monstrosity vampire.
Vampire.
Like, let's actually get some
dude
of
named
these
Jeff.
stories. Yeah. Like, Greg had a bad day.
Yeah.
He got turned into a vampire on a year that was not his year.
Yeah, he was going through a divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Real vampire.
Like, I think that would make a great movie.
That'd be
That'd be fun.
Yeah, it'd be really fun.
Yeah, that'd be an excellent storyline too.
Yeah.
because then he starts realizing his powers and what he can do.
It's really a story of self-acceptance.
Yeah.
It is.
It is.
That's what
It is a
Thank
story
you
of
for-
self-acceptance.
So we've been on this for a minute. We do have a couple more topics we need to talk about, such as because when we first had you on, we got off and you immediately were like, "Oh man,
Forgot about the elves.
I want to talk about these elves."
Bruh.
So what's your theory on these elves? Why are they from space? What's going on?
All right, so let's put Tolkien aside for a minute, and let's just kind of go on the whole concept, the history of elves, whether it be D&D or whether it be Santa's elves. They all kind of have a same storyline that they live for an extremely long time, much longer than the average human.
Like a turtle.
Yeah, they all have the ability to focus on logic and moving things in a positive direction.
Okay.
They suppress their emotions
Right.
heavily.
Like a stepdad.
Yeah, like a stepdad. They're all stepdads.
So elves are turtle stepdads so far.
That's right.
Okay.
And then on top of that, they all kind of have like a connection with each other.
Yeah.
That's deeper than any other species has with each other. They can almost read each other's thoughts. The older they get, the stronger they get. They mind meld some of them. And if you think about it, the same parallel story of Vulcans and ramen.
Yeah, ramen.
Yeah, I'm
the noodles.
hungry.
I'm a big fan of the noodles.
The Romulans and the Vulcans kind of have the same similar backstory as your Drow, High Elves, and your
20
Wood
years and
Elves.
all.
Yeah, 20 years and even the bow. even
Oh,
shooting a bow.
yeah.
A lot of it is all still kind of like, and they all suppress their emotions. They all went through a period where they separated and divided from an original collective species. I think elves have just been around longer than we think.
Yeah.
So in Pathfinder lore, they're from another plane.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, they
Nice.
came here from elsewhere.
Yeah.
So I'm convinced that Vulcans are space elves.
Kind of like the theory that aliens kind of dropped off some germs on this planet and now we're around.
And they
right?
seeded it. Yeah.
We're here to harvest gold for their ships or whatever.
I was coming in from a skeptical angle, and then you just kept listing more things, and I'm like, yep.
Yep.
And I think that was the conversation. I think we're done.
So here's the other thing too. That we call that headcanon.
Yeah. Right.
It's in fiction, so much like a vampire being. It's whatever you need it to be for whatever the show you're doing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. Yeah. Anything else to say about space elves?
Space
I
elves,
just got-
baby.
Let's take a quick
I
break.
went way too deep into space elves for like a week.
Nice.
Yeah.
Bring it, baby.
Yeah.
Brian, if anyone has any questions about space elves and whatnot, where can they find you at?
Oh, please send me messages on Instagram. I would love to entertain space elf conversation.
And
it's
you're-
at Brian Pitre Comedy.
Yeah, that's
All right.
P-E-T-R-I.
Pitre.
I get that
Please
wrong
change your
every
phone.
single time.
Please change it in your phone.
I got it. He is not wrong.
He is not. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to that first half, and come back and see us for the second half where we talk about your comic book.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Nerd News podcast. We are going to be talking about Brian's comic book. Do you just want to go ahead and get us started? Because I don't even think we know the name of it right now. We just know that you've been working on it a lot.
I've been working on 2 actually.
Oh.
I have a bunch that I've written, just have them all written out. Now I'm using the ability to storyboard them, like just jumping back and forth between AI and Photoshop and Illustrator and figuring out how I want it to look.
Okay.
And it's fun. I'm able to resurrect some comics that I've written years ago and actually kind of bring them to light.
Yeah.
One of the ones I'm working on, I'm changing the name of it, but it was originally called Hand of God. It's very interesting. I grew up as a Catholic kid. I used to have a lot of questions that weren't being answered because I would ask the wrong questions, I guess. Catholicism exposes you to demons. And then you want to learn about them, but nobody wants to tell you about them.
Yeah.
It does feel that they're like, well, no, this used to scare the hell out of everybody.
Yeah.
And then you want to know more. We didn't write.
We weren't prepared. So then I started doing research on that, and I figured that would be a cool comic to write about.
Okay. Right on.
And then I'm writing one on, ironically, space elves.
Nice. Right
It's a whole concept. I'm writing about elves who the planet is about to be destroyed by a very giant, omnipotent force that's coming from another plane to just crush their planet, and they found a way to leave.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a question on things like that, like the power dynamic of something so hugely, like you said, omnipotent. How is it just one of those things? Is it a story of running? Is it a story of how they fight back?
The story is of how they persevere as a species.
Okay.
It's very much analogistic to us and our what would we do if we got hit by an asteroid? Are we
die,
prepared?
hopefully. I would.
I don't think, and I think it'd be cool to just kind of. I want it to not so much be. I'm using elves as a moniker for humans.
Yeah.
But it's easier if you in a fantasy world think, oh, it's not gonna happen to us.
Yeah.
But what happened if it happened to them?
Right.
Yeah.
No. So when you have an idea for a story, do you start with a concept and then like branch off from a concept? Because most of the time, like I have an idea for a horror movie that I've had for years, and it all stemmed from me watching horror movies and finding and thinking of what I think the perfect horror movie scene would be, and then trying to create a movie around that more so than a concept.
I think so there's a million writing prompts
Yeah,
you
for
can
sure.
use to create a storyline. I think it's what interests you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're watching a movie and it's about werewolves and maybe there's a plot hole and you were like, oh man, this would have been so much better had they just done this. Yeah, that's a great story place to start. But then you got to figure out there's an exercise you can do to go backwards in your story to where you're like, this is the part of the story that matters to me. Well, when you work yourself out of it, how much story is actually there?
Yeah.
You know, and then once you realize, oh, I don't have enough story to write this, but maybe it'll fit somewhere. So let me just write that and then go on to another project. Because then you can always reference back and be like, oh yeah, I remember that werewolf scene I wrote. I can go put that in here because now you've got a better story you can add it to. So I think it really just comes from just writing. You just have to come up with an idea, start writing, and then be like, oh, well, here I am.
Oh my gosh. I know we complain all the time. It's like, I just have to sit down and write. It doesn't even matter what we write. It's just, we got to write. And it's so difficult to just dedicate like a half an hour to this. But as soon as you do it, it gets all the juices going.
Yeah.
There's a great quote. I can't remember if Gary Goldman said it, but it was like, no one wants to sit down to write, but everyone's happy that they've written.
Yeah.
Because it's just taking that little step to get a little bit of forward momentum on your goal, and then it just immediately gets it rolling.
Yeah. So how long have you been working on these two comics?
These two in particular have been going for probably over a decade.
Oh, wow. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
like they've been in process. So the Hand of God comic was created based off of me and my cousin just having a conversation about demons and stuff like that. And then it became this would be a cool comic book. And so then we wrote like 2 or 3 issues and then it just got forgotten about. We just got busy in life.
Yeah.
And then revisiting them like about 4 or 5 years ago, I was like, we need to rewrite this. And then we rewrote one of the issues and I was like, all right, so now what? You know, and it's tough because you don't know how to go from writing to paneling it out. And even if you do, who's going to do the artwork? Right. And then how much is that going to cost? And then,
because that's where it gets expensive. That's why the vast majority of comic books are black and white, because it's just like, this is as cheap as we can get as many copies out as possible.
Exactly.
Well, so you're telling me you spent a pretty penny on just getting it outlined, and that's not even colored.
Yeah, that was one of my first comics I ever wrote. A buddy of mine was beautiful artist, Danny Allain. He was...
We don't do shout outs on this show.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? Danny's my dude. Me and Danny were hanging out playing Farkle in a shack in the middle of the woods. And
that's a weird... What?
Never heard of that.
Yeah, and then I had an idea, and I started kind of pitching it to him, and I told him what it was.
We're not going to address what Farkle is?
Yeah.
I mean, if you've played Farkle, you know.
Right.
Comment to teach these nerds what Farkle is, and it's dice game.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
All
It's
right.
a dice game,
I thought
fellas.
it was anal sex.
Of course you
That's what I...
Of course you did.
Yep. I brought up Uno, and he was like, I don't know.
I don't know. That sounds like anal sex.
Yeah. I was like, man.
He's like, you want to play Connect 4? And then he spit in his palm.
Not going to play Go Fish. That's for sure.
No.
No, we were playing this dice game, and then I pitched him this idea, and he was like, well, write it. And so I wrote it, and then I sent it to him, and he was like, I want to draw this. And so then we just kind of went back and forth, and I just paid him what I could over time. And then finally we got probably pretty close to finishing it. And it's just the time constraints. Life starts to happen. Your kid gets older, you get busy, things start happening. People change jobs, stuff like that. And it gets forgotten. And I can't imagine how many comics probably are out there, or comic book writers who are like, yeah, I get that. Yeah, that's exactly what happened to like 9 that I wrote,
Yeah.
Well, it's just like anything else, like filmmaking or making music. Like, I got all these great ideas. I can do what I can, and then it's just like I need a help.
team.
It's a community thing.
Yeah, I connected on Facebook for a while. I spent a good like 3 or 4 years just communicating. There's a ton of different groups for illustrators, writers, people who like to collaborate. There's discords out there for people who want to discuss ideas and come up with stuff. But even then, at some point, where do you launch? And when you Google comic books, if you just Google comic books, it's daunting. It's like Googling stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
It's daunting. It's to the point where you're like, this isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
But you just got to keep going.
That's, I mean, like you said, it's just like stand up. When I first started, I didn't know anything. I knew you did open mics, and then eventually you were on TV. But I spent years learning all these little things in the in between, how to be better, how to who to talk to, and and it's just like that with anything
art.
else.
Yeah.
So
art.
I really recommend anyone out there that's trying to do anything, do it. Just start doing it. Do it a little bit today, and then do it a little bit tomorrow, and then always do a little bit more tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, then
It's a little easier every day.
Every day, yeah. And then you're right, because if I was to try to start this journey now, I would probably would have given up.
Yeah.
But because I started it 10, 12 years ago, whenever I was like, oh, I'm passionate about this. Now I'm at a point now I don't have to learn the nuances. I know them, so now I just need to apply it all.
Oh God, yeah. If I was starting to do stand up and they're like, well, you're also going to have to do a podcast and learn video editing and audio editing, and there's just that list of ands, I'll be like, I'm just gonna not.
Yeah.
do it. Yeah, I am.
I mean, I'm a little 2 years into stand up, and I'm already like,
Yeah, you got more to learn too.
yeah, a lot.
We all do. But
No, but I guess to answer your question, because I don't think I did, for me, story creation comes from something that I find that a story that needs to be told. I like historical fiction. I like taking the idea of something that actually happened and maybe placing a character in that world and describing what it's like from their eyes.
Okay.
Because you could always go with trying to write something that's nonfiction, trying to go find a story of a person and try to write it. But then you're going to have the people who are like, well, that didn't happen this way, or this didn't happen that way. But if you add a little fiction in there, if you throw a character that doesn't really exist, but his eyes are there in that scene, you can write it pretty unbiasedly.
nice. Yeah.
And you can kind of just show what happened. And I like writing those stories.
Nice.
And it's also a good foil for like, that's why most movies have like the guy who just got brought in.
Yeah.
That way you can explain things in a way
Yeah.
to the
Exposition.
audience. Yeah,
Yeah.
the foil for the
Yeah,
audience.
it's almost like what Assassin's Creed tried to do for a while, where it was like, yeah, we met Michelangelo. Did he ever meet an assassin named whatever that did all this cool? No,
Can't
absolutely.
say he didn't, though.
Right. Yeah. Right.
You can't
Yeah.
say he didn't.
Yeah. But I really like the alternative like points of view from characters that may or may not have been around. Like if you're just talking about a bystander of a big important event, who knows how they interpreted it?
Correct. And I think I liked it because it was an ability for me to talk on topics without having to take a position. You know, if my character in the scene, let's say I'm writing a Civil War comic, and my character in the scene is a Black American who's fighting for the South. But he, maybe that whole concept, that whole mentality behind that individual, there has to be a reason.
Yeah.
It can't just be that he sided with that group.
Right.
There has to be something to it. So it's like seeing the world through that individual's eyes.
Yeah, that would be an incredibly interesting story because I know when I went on a deep dive of the Civil War, there were literally rules to where like plantation owners, because they had a draft, if they got drafted, they could be like, well, I'll give you blank amount of my slaves in my place for my draft pick. So that happened all the time. And it's wicked. It's horrible.
Yeah.
But how many people experience that?
There were some that were offered false hope, and that's kind of
Oh man.
I do a thing where it's like a blog. I'll write myself a blog, and it's to me, but it's about a comic idea that I have, and I keep it in my notes. So anytime I come up with a story, I'm like, oh, let me write the synopsis, the internal book blog, that little area where you can kind of read what it's about. And when I write the cliff for it, I usually try to keep in mind why. Why does this touch me? Why do I feel like this story needs to be told? And a lot of it has to do with, like you were saying, that people don't Google. People don't do a deep dive. So comic books are a way to learn things about stuff, I feel like, that you wouldn't normally go research.
Right. Or at least get you curious enough to know.
To go research it.
Because, I know I just talked about Assassin's Creed, but when I first started playing those games as a kid, I was like in Damascus and all these huge places in the 1100s that I didn't know existed in middle school. And I'm like, well, I know obviously this isn't real, but what are all these places that I don't even know exist? And yeah, you can figure out a lot of history by just doing nerdy stuff.
Yeah, and you were like, were there dinosaurs here?
Yeah, right. There were dinosaurs everywhere, Tyson.
They're still here.
Yeah.
See a
They're called alligators and chickens.
What a wild diversion, too.
I don't know, man. If you ever went face to face with a chicken, that's a dinosaur.
Yeah.
That's a dinosaur.
Yeah, the little head tilts. Yeah, they'll get you.
And it's listening.
So I got a couple of questions for you, Brian. So say if I wanted to start writing comic books today, like what programs would you recommend?
So that's a loaded question because it's not what programs. It's first and foremost, just go learn about stories because you can't write a good story unless you know about them. So unless you've got like a wealth of knowledge behind you let's say you have a story to tell.
Yeah.
First thing I would say is go learn script writing. There's some great programs out there like Celtex.
I use Celtics.
Yeah, there's great programs out there that help you structure how to write a script, because you have to, and no matter what, you've got to write it out first. So first learn the steps and techniques and formatting of script writing. Once you've learned how to present that, then the next step would honestly be to go find a program that you're comfortable with, whether it's Photoshop, Illustrator, Publisher and Illustrator are some of the easier tools to kind of move images around without having to necessarily learn the whole program.
Yeah.
Illustrator, you can drop an image in, resize it, and just move it on the page where you want it. And I think that's a first step of just learning how to storyboard a comic if you're not going to just sit down and draw it. But outside of that, it's going to be how much effort do you want to put into learning programs? Because then it's who do you outsource it to once you've written the story, once you've storyboarded it? Do you want to do it yourself, or do you want to get on with a group? There's a buddy I met online, and he's from France, and me and him kept in touch for about a year, and we just gave each other prompts and writing prompts. We discussed each other's comics. We talked for a long time about the nuances of getting it published. It's a weird world we're in. To try to print a comic is expensive. To get it out online, it doesn't necessarily get seen. So it's there's a journey there on what direction you want to go. So I'd say even learning at that point, let's say you know all the programs. Let's say you know them all. Let's say you wrote the comic, it's done, you have it, it's finished. Then you got to go learn social media. Then you got to go learn publishing software. Then you got to go. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop.
I think a lot of people get lost in the ocean of things to learn. Where sometimes you just got to start with a rowboat and get across the river.
Yeah,
you do.
You just got to start you just got to start.
You got to write
you learn a little bit every day.
If you don't have a story, all the other stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So you got to just first write the story, even if it's just in your head. Like write it from start to finish. Come up with the idea. Write the character's name. I mean, it's fun. I got into D&D in the last 3 years, and for me, it was kind of like a natural transition because I'm always writing characters. I'm always telling their story. So now I just have to play them, and it's fun because I can actually take characters I've created in other comics and turn them into something that I can use for something else. So if you're a D&D player, you've written stories. You know, don't be afraid of writing the story. You got to have the story.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think that's probably going to be about it. Feels like it's about our time this
Solid.
week. Yeah. So Brian, where can we find you on the internet?
At Brian Pitre Comedy on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm Dank Budman.
Okay. All right. Excellent.
And then just for some quick announcements, we actually. You want to do the announcements? I feel my mic's kind of weird.
Yeah, for sure. I can do the announcements. So we've got quite a few things coming up. Over Brian's lovely shoulder, we have Monster, which is actually now sold out.
February 9th.
Yes. So the January 18th show has sold out, but good news, we have gotten approved for a second show February 9th. Tickets are available now. Go to the White Rabbit and get your tickets.
Before that, we got a show with Brian.
Yes. That's right. February 3rd, we have a Magic the Gathering release show. It's going to be super exciting. It starts at 8 o'clock. It is at Circle City Comics. And the ticket is $15. It comes with a free pack of cards from the new set, New Phyrexia, and a 1-hour comedy show. And you get to play Magic the Gathering with us for about an hour after the show.
It's like a wet dream.
Yeah.
You get to do stand-up in a comic book store and get free Magic cards.
Yeah.
Like if I told 12-year-old me that's where I'd be right now, I'd be like, shut up.
Kooky. Yeah. So yeah, and then we've got some more projects in the works. So we'll have some new announcements coming for you pretty soon. But thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for checking out Nerd News. We don't have advertising, so you are the advertising. Now, if you liked it, go ahead and tell a friend, like, comment, share, subscribe, or even leave a review on Apple. Every little bit helps. It's insane. You guys have no idea how much your support means to us. And if you want to do a little bit more, we have launched our Patreon. So if you would support us financially, go check out our Patreon. All our content is free, but we do have rewards at every tier. So I just want to say thank you all again, and we'll see you next time.